Hello everyone, welcome to lecture number 47 on Swayam BHU course on Fundamentals of Economics and Financial Markets. Myself Dr. Anand Singh, and in this particular video I will be discussing with all of you regarding dematerialization of securities. Now in this particular video I will be discussing with all of you on four major key points, that is key point number 1. In the first segment, we will discuss regarding what is the meaning of dematerialization of securities. In the key point number 2, we will discuss regarding the objectives behind dematerialization of securities. That means why we go for dematerialization of securities, or why the government has basically mandated, or why the government has asked, or why SEBI has basically encouraged the dematerialization of securities. In the third segment, we will discuss regarding the process of dematerialization. That means, suppose any company or suppose any investor is going for dematerialization, then what are the necessary steps, what are the necessary process which must be followed for the purpose of dematerialization. And in the last segment, we will discuss regarding large number of participants, for example, depositories, depository participants, the RTA, that is registrar and transfer agents, issuer, etc. All these participants, they basically help in the process of dematerialization. So in the last segment, we will discuss regarding the role of all such participants. So let us start this video. In the first segment, we will discuss regarding what is the meaning of dematerialization of securities. Here, the dematerialization of security basically refers to the process of conversion of physical form of securities into electronic form. That means dematerialization is basically concerned with the transformation of physical form of securities into electronic form. This entire process is basically regarded as dematerialization of securities. This process allows the investors to hold and trade securities electronically. That means after dematerialization of securities, the investors, they are in a position, they are in a situation to hold their securities or to trade in their securities in electronic form. That means if dematerialization has not been done, then it is not possible for the investors to trade in electronic form. Trading might be done in electronic form only after dematerialization of their securities. In India, there are two important depositories, that is NSDL and CDSL. NSDL basically stands for the National Securities Depository Limited, and CDSL basically stands for Central Depository Services Limited. These are two primary depositories that maintain electronic records of dematerialized securities. That means suppose if a company or any individual investor has to safeguard his electronic form of securities, then there are two important depositories. Both these depositories are well registered with Securities and Exchange Board of India. As such, till date, only two depositories are there. In the next segment, we will discuss regarding the concept that whether dematerialization of security is compulsory or dematerialization of security is voluntary in nature. As such, earlier, that means prior to 30 September 2024, dematerialization of security was voluntary in nature. But from 30 September 2024, the dematerialization of securities has become compulsory. That means from 30 September 2024, dematerialization of shares is mandatory for most of the private companies in India. Only exemption has been granted to the small companies. Here, I would like to explain the concept of small companies in the views of SEBI. According to SEBI, small companies are basically those companies which have a paid up capital of less than 4 crore or their turnover is less than rupees 40 crore. That means all those private companies whose paid up capital is less than 4 crore and their annual turnover is basically less than 40 crore, then such companies are regarded as the small companies. For small companies, the dematerialization of security is voluntary in nature. That means it depends upon the small companies, small private companies, that whether they are going for dematerialization of their securities or not. But except the small private companies, that means for the big private companies and for all the public limited companies, dematerialization of securities have become compulsory in nature. As I already said earlier, it was voluntary in nature. However, with effect from 27th October 2023, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Government of India has made it mandatory for private limited companies except the small limited companies to issue their securities in dematerialized form starting from 30 September 2024 and to facilitate conversion of all their existing securities in dematerialized form. That means government has clearly stated that all the big private companies are supposed to convert their physical form of securities into electronic form. They must dematerialize their securities because after 30 September 2024, trading in dematerialized form, or it is compulsory for the big companies to convert their physical form of securities into electronic form. In the next segment, we will discuss regarding what are the objectives behind dematerialization of securities. That means, what are the objectives? Why the investors or why the owners of the securities or why the companies, they basically go for dematerialization of securities? Why they should convert their physical form of securities into electronic form? Now we will discuss regarding such objectives. The first important objective behind dematerialization of security is number one, cost savings. That means demat accounts reduce transaction costs and eliminate the need to pay stamp duty on securities. Earlier, basically when physical form of securities were traded by the companies, then such kind of trading, that means trading of physical form of securities, were subjected to stamp duty. That means they have to pay extra amount in the form of stamp duty charges. Also, the transaction cost was basically higher. So, after dematerialization of securities, both can be saved. That means there is no need to pay stamp duty and also the transaction costs are much lesser as compared to the earlier transaction cost. So, dematerialization of security helps in cost saving. The point number two is easy access. That means after dematerialization of securities, the investors can access their demat accounts online to track investments and view transaction history. That means each and everything is very, or it can be done in a very convenient way. All of us have smart mobiles. Now, after opening a demat account, if our securities are dematerialized, then we can access our trading. We can look after the history regarding when investment was done, what kind of securities were purchased, what was the total number of security, what was the transaction cost which was given by us to the broker, etc. So, it is very easy to track or to access each and everything which was done by us in the demat account while trading the dematerialized securities. Now, the next important objective is easy transfer of shares. That means demat accounts make it easier to transfer shares, sell them or take a loan against them. Earlier, basically during 1875, when Bombay Stock Exchange was established for the first time, it was At that point of time, it was known as Native Shares and Stock Brokers Association. In that period, basically settlement time was around 60 days. That means final settlement was done in almost 60 days. But after dematerialization of securities, after the demat accounts are active, then the shares may be easily transferred by one person to another or from one entity to another. It hardly takes T plus 1 or T plus many securities are basically executed or they are settled within same day also. So nowadays it is very easy to transmit shares from one person to another or from one entity to another. The next important objective is liquidity. Demat improves the liquidity in the market because when the shares are dematerialized, that means when the shares are converted into electronic form, then it is very easy to trade such kind of securities. Also, it is also accessible to large number of investors. So, because of both these reasons, that means point number one, large number of investors may participate in the purchasing of such kind of stocks. Also, it is easily accessible to large number of investors. So, in both the conditions, it clearly states that the demat account will provide more liquidity to the stocks. That means if a stock is dematerialized, it is listed over the stock markets, it is in electronic form, then it is possible that its liquidity might be enhanced. The next important objective behind dematerialization is activate international security identification number is basically granted to all the dematerialized securities. This ISIN number is basically granted only to the dematerialized securities, and with the help of ISIN number, such securities might be verified by all kind of investors, whether it is a domestic investor or whether it is the case of a foreign investors. All type of investors, all type of companies, they can easily verify the dematerialized securities with the help of ISIN, that is Active International Securities Identification Number. Now, in the next segment, we will basically discuss regarding the process of dematerialization. In this figure, you can see that what are the major steps which must be taken by a company or specifically a investor, what necessary steps must be taken by the investor in order to dematerialize his securities. That means that particular person who is having physical form of securities, what are the necessary steps which must be taken by the person to convert his physical form of securities into electronic form. In this figure, we can see that there are four major participants who are actively participating in the process of dematerialization. Those participants are, point number one is client, participant number two is DP, that means depository participant, participant third is depository itself, and fourth participant is RTA, that is registrar and transfer agent. Now, before discussing regarding all the process of dematerialization or before discussing regarding the important steps which are done in the process of dematerialization, let us discuss regarding the role of all these participants. The first participant here is client. That means that person, client is indicating that person who is having physical form of security and who is willing to convert his physical form of securities into electronic form. All of us knows that for the purpose of trading, that means if a person has to trade its securities, over the listed stock market, then listing is compulsory, and for the purpose of listing of securities, dematerialization is a essential requirement. That means all the persons have to convert their physical form of securities into electronic form in order to get their securities listed over the stock markets. So client here represents that person who is having physical form of securities and he is willing to list it over the stock exchanges. The second participant is depository. Depository is perhaps the most important participant when we talk regarding the dematerialization of securities. Depositories are basically those kind of organizations which hold the securities like shares, debentures, bonds, government securities, mutual funds, units, etc. of investors in electronic form at the request of the investors through a registered depository participant, and it also provides services related to transactions in securities. So depositories are basically those kind of organizations which are responsible for safeguarding the electronic form of securities of their clients. Here it is extremely important to note that depositories will hold the electronic form of securities at the request of their client only. That means it clearly shows that dematerialization of security as such it is not compulsory, but at the request of the investor they may open demat account, they may dematerialize the securities. Now next one is depository participants are there who are in direct touch with the investor, and depository participant basically forward the informations which are received to them by the investor to the concerned depository. All of us knows that there are two important depositories in our country, that is CDSL and NSDL. Both the depositories are registered depositories with SEBI. The NSDL, which was also the first registered depository of our country, it was established in 1996, whereas CDSL, which was the second depository, it is also registered with SEBI. It was established in 1999. But both these depositories are registered with SEBI and they provide the facilities to hold the electronic form of securities on the behalf of their client. So they safeguard the electronic form of securities of their client on their request. The fourth important participant is RTA, that is Registrar and Transfer Agents. RTA is basically a private firm that helps companies to maintain records and provide information to investors. Here it is extremely important to note that RTA are also registered with SEBI, because none of the participant they can participate in the stock markets without getting themselves registered with SEBI or the concerned stock market. In the same manner, RTA is also a registered body. It is a private firm that helps the companies to maintain their records and provides informations to the investors. That means they are concerned with both the parties. RTA are also directly connected with the investor. They provide important informations to the investors. Also, RTA are directly concerned with the company itself. They also provide necessary information to the companies. Now, in this particular segment, we will discuss regarding the important steps that takes place under the process of dematerialization. That means, suppose an investor has to convert his physical form of securities into electronic form, then what are the necessary steps that must be carried out? So, we will discuss all these steps. In the step number 1, we can see that the client is handing over his physical form of security and an application form to the depository participant. In this application form, the client will clearly state that he is willing to convert his physical form of securities into electronic form. So, in the step number 1, the client will hand over his physical form of securities and an application form clearly stating that convert this physical form of securities into electronic form to the depository participant. Now, in the step number 2, the depository participant will pass on this application form where the client has clearly stated that his request to convert the physical form of securities into electronic form. That application will be forwarded by depository participant to the concerned depository. All of us knows that there are two important depository. So, the depository participant, if it is concerned with CDSL, then in step number 2, it will forward the application form to CDSL. If it is attached with NSDL, then in step number 2, the depository participant will forward the application form to NSDL. Now, in the third step, the depository participant will forward the physical form of securities received to it by the investor in step number 1 to the registrar and transfer agent. All the physical form of securities will be transmitted by the depository participant to RTA in step number 3. In the step number 4 of this process of dematerialization, the depository will pass on an information, that information which was received to the depository from the depository participant regarding the conversion of physical form of securities into electronic form. That application form will be forwarded to the RTA. Now, after receiving the application form or after receiving the information from depository to convert the physical form of securities into electronic form, the RTA, the officers or the officials of RTA will basically dematerialize the physical form of securities into electronic form after proper verification. That means it is the responsibility of RTA officials to look after that all the physical form of securities are proper, they are legal, they have been duly issued by the company itself. So, after verification of those physical form of securities properly, the RTA will convert the physical form of securities into electronic form, and these electronic form of securities will be transmitted, or these electronic form of securities will be forwarded by RTA to the depository in step number 5. So, in step number 5, basically the electronic form of securities are transmitted by the RTA to the depository. In the step number 6, the depository will transmit the information and that account which contains the electronic form of securities and password of that particular account to the depository participant. That means in step number 6, the depository will transmit the information to the depository participant that the physical form of securities of the investor have been converted into electronic form, and that account which contains the electronic form of securities along with a password will be transmitted by the depository to the depository participant. Here, it is extremely important to note down the fact that the value of the electronic form of security will be same as of the value of its physical form of securities. That means RTA must convert the physical form of securities into electronic form without diminishing in the value of the securities. So, when RTA will transmit the electronic form of securities to the depositories, those electronic form of securities having the same value, having the same denomination value will be transmitted by the depositories to the depository participant in the step number 6. In the step number 7 or in the last step which is concerned with the process of dematerialization, the depository participant will basically forward the account and password to the investor. Also, In the step number 7, basically the actual account or password, it might be provided or it might be sent by the depository itself. That means it is the responsibility of NSDL and CDSL to directly dispatch the account and necessary information to the concerned investor. So this was the whole process of dematerialization of securities. In the next segment, we will discuss regarding how to open a demat account. Suppose if you have to open a demat account, then what is the required procedure? What are the necessary steps which we are supposed to follow? Some of the important steps are: point number 1, complete an account opening form. That means we are supposed to fulfill a account opening form. This form may be fulfilled by all of us through online mode also. In the second step, we are supposed to submit our KYC documents. That means know your customer document. Basically, such kind of documents are essentially required by the bodies which are opening demat account on behalf of us, which are basically opening our demat accounts. They will ask for KYC, and under that particular document we are supposed to give certain proof regarding our income such as ITR. We are supposed to attach our ITR forms with that particular KYC norms. Next step is PAN card. That means for opening of a demat account, it is essential that the investor or that particular person must have a PAN card. In the next step, we are supposed to provide our bank details. That means you will need to provide your account number and IFSC code. In some cases, you may also need to provide a cancelled check. That means it depends upon that particular body who is opening your demat account, that it may require the bank details or it may also ask you to submit a cancelled check. Now, before opening a demat account, you must also consider the following things. Point number 1, what is the brokerage fees of that particular demat account operator? That means you are supposed to compare the brokerage fees and other costs associated with the account. Next thing is trading platform. That means you must ensure that the broker offers the trading platform and tools you need. You should look after that. Whatever trading tools are needed by you, whether such kind of tools are provided by that particular body or not. In the third thing, you should look after or you should check the broker's reputation for providing timely and helpful services. Also, you must make sure that the broker has a secure trading platform. Also, you are supposed to research regarding the broker's financial health to ensure they are well capitalized. And lastly, you are also supposed to make proper research. That means check if the broker provides research tools and analysis to help you make informed trading decisions or not. After analyzing all such type of points or all such important points, then decide about opening of a demat account with which demat account provider. Then after you decide about that specific broker with which you are going to open your demat account. In the next video, I will be discussing with all of you regarding NSE, that means National Stock Exchange. So thanks, very thanks for watching this video.